This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Very good morning. You're watching News 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra. Well, a lot to cover in the next 1 hour or so here on the show. First up, of course, we bring you the story of the Strait of Hormuz, where Germany now becomes the latest country after Australia and Japan to reject Donald Trump's bid for help in keeping the strait open. That's the big story we're tracking for you this morning on Morning Brief at 9. Also on the show, markets saw a late day bounce back yesterday, and Gift Nifty indications suggest that markets are likely to open in the green again. Is there an advantage to book profits and also look at the small cap indexes? We'll bring you that perspective with Mohit Gang on the show. And Netanyahu releases another video on his official handle on X, proving to the world that he's alive. But is he? Well, his viral reels are indeed going viral. We'll bring you that on the show. All this and more on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. You're watching Morning Brief at 9 this Tuesday morning. Here's a look at the headlines. US President Donald Trump says it is unclear whether Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, is alive after reported strike injuries. Trump says he may delay a planned China trip by a month due to ongoing Iran war. US allies show reluctance as Trump struggles to build support. Japan, Australia and European allies hesitate to secure the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says the Strait of Hormuz shut only for enemies, with Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi saying ships from friendly nations can still pass with coordination with Iran's armed forces. US Vice President J.D. Vance defends President Donald Trump's handling of the Iran conflict, saying he trusts the president to avoid the mistakes of past wars. Over 5,500 flights cancelled by Indian and foreign carriers amid West Asia crisis as airspace restrictions disrupt travel. US President Donald Trump suggests the United States could take control of Cuba, telling reporters he believes he could have the honor of doing so. And Trump urges the Senate to approve the Republican-backed Save America Act, a bill requiring proof of citizenship for federal voting and tightening rules on voter ID and mail-in ballots. And Jensen Huang says Nvidia sees at least $1 trillion revenue opportunity for AI chips by the year 2027 as demand surges for systems capable of running artificial intelligence in real time. US President Donald Trump said it remains unclear whether Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, is still alive, following reports that he was injured in an airstrike. Speaking to reporters, Trump said conflicting claims suggest the leader may be badly wounded, disfigured, or possibly dead, though nothing has been confirmed. Now remember, US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had said last week that Mojtaba Khamenei was believed to have been wounded in the strike. The Iranian leader has not appeared publicly since, sparking speculation about his condition. Listening to US President Donald Trump.
What are your advisors telling you about the Ayatollah's son, the new supreme leader? What are they telling you about him?
Well, it's not only them, it's you people. I mean, a lot of people are saying that he's badly disfigured. They're saying that he lost his leg, the one leg, and he's been hurt very badly. Other people are saying he's dead. Nobody's saying he's 100% healthy. And he hasn't spoken because the Ayatollah would sit and he'd spew hate from a form of a throne. Not as nice as a throne. I like the English throne much better. But it was a fancy chair. But he'd spew hate from his chair. But you'd see him a lot, right? This one, we haven't seen at all. So that could be for a lot of different reasons. We don't know, Peter, if he's dead or not.
Now that you've announced...
I will say this, nobody's seen him, which is unusual.
And a growing diplomatic rift is emerging among Western allies as US President Donald Trump struggles to build international support for securing the strategic Strait of Hormuz. Now, several key US allies have either rejected or expressed hesitation over Washington's call to deploy naval forces to the region amid the ongoing conflict involving the United States, Israel and Iran. Japan has made it clear that it has taken no decision to send escort ships to West Asia. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi said Tokyo is still evaluating possible steps within the limits of its pacifist constitution, which restricts overseas military deployments.
求められておりませんので、仮定のことにはお答えしにくうございます。日本政府として必要な対応を行う方法を現在検討中です。もちろん日本の法律の範囲内でございますけれども、どのように日本関係船舶およびその乗員の命を守っていくか、何ができるかということを検討中でございます。
Meanwhile, Australia has also ruled out sending warships, with Transport Minister Catherine King saying Canberra has not been asked to contribute naval forces and is currently focused on defensive support in the United Arab Emirates. Meanwhile, in Europe, the divisions appear even sharper. Germany has expressed skepticism about any NATO role in the Gulf, with Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul stating that the alliance has neither discussed nor approved such a mission.
I think we are not very close to that, not at all. I mean, we have a situation which we did not provoke, which we don't cause at all. This war started without any consultations before. We have a big responsibility, a very important responsibility for the eastern flank and the high north, as I mentioned earlier, and we stay committed to that, but we can't be anywhere on the world and we can't be at every place to support a war which we didn't start. So it is about to find ways to solve the situation diplomatically.
France, meanwhile, has also rejected reports of sending vessels, while several other countries, including Norway and Spain, have declined participation. The United Kingdom, under Prime Minister Keir Starmer, has also refused to deploy Royal Navy warships, saying reopening the strait is not a simple task and requires broader coordination.
But ultimately, we have to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to ensure stability in the market. That is not a simple task. So we're working with all of our allies, including our European partners, to bring together a viable collective plan that can restore freedom of navigation in the region as quickly as possible and ease the economic impacts. As to what the precise options are, as I say, mine hunting systems of ours are already in the region. We've already spoken about what we can do in relation to anti-drone capability. But this isn't just about what the UK can do, it's about how we play a part in bringing others together behind a viable plan. So that's where we're at the moment.
And stating that the Iran war is not Europe's war, the European Union said on Monday it is not ready to expand its naval mission to the Strait of Hormuz. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said foreign ministers showed no appetite to extend the bloc's naval operation in the Middle East to the strategic waterway for now. The EU's Aspides naval mission, launched in 2024, currently protects commercial ships from Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. Kaja Kallas said while there is support for strengthening the operation and deploying more naval assets, EU countries are not ready to change the mission's mandate.
Iran is now waging war on global economy. Ministers reaffirmed today that our focus is de-escalation and also to the freedom of navigation. This is not Europe's war, and this situation in the region, we have the operation Aspides, as I said, in the Red Sea. The discussion was that it should be strengthened because it doesn't have too many naval assets. It should have more. But the discussion on whether we are also extending this mandate to cover the Strait of Hormuz, to go north from the Muscat line, there was no appetite from the member states to do that.
But Trump is not giving up. Meanwhile, he is calling for renewed help from countries to help unblock the Strait of Hormuz, criticizing some allies for showing little enthusiasm in supporting Washington's request for naval support and other military assistance. Speaking to reporters, Trump said several nations the U.S. has long protected were reluctant to get involved, even though he described the task as relatively minor. He also reiterated his criticism of NATO allies, saying the United States often defends partners but does not always receive the same support in return.
Numerous countries have told me they're on the way. Some are very enthusiastic about it, and some aren't. Some are countries that we've helped for many, many years. We've protected them from horrible outside sources. And they weren't that enthusiastic. And the level of enthusiasm matters to me. We have some countries where we have 45,000 soldiers, great soldiers, protecting them from harm's way. And we have done a great job. And when we want to know, do you have any minesweepers? Well, would rather not get involved, sir. I said, for 40 years we're protecting you, and you don't want to get involved in something that is very minor? And I've always felt that was a weakness of NATO. We were going to protect them, but I always said, when in need, they won't protect us. Now, this isn't need. Need would be one of the big boys. But I will say that we built the greatest military in the world, and we protect people. And if we need their mine boats, or if we need any piece of apparatus that they may have because of a situation that they have, they should be jumping to help us, because we've helped them for years stay out of wars. Yeah, please.
Meanwhile, Iran declared on Monday that the Strait of Hormuz is not completely closed despite the ongoing war. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said vessels from countries not involved in the conflict are still able to pass through the strategic waterway with coordination with Iran's armed forces. Araghchi also said Tehran has not asked for a ceasefire and has not exchanged any messages with the United States.
They are asking other countries to come and help them so that the Strait of Hormuz remains open, which, of course, from our perspective, it is open. It is only closed to our enemies, to those who carried out unjust aggression against our country, and to their allies. We have not sent any message. We are not asking for a ceasefire. But this war must come to an end in a way that it will not be repeated again.
And owing to the ongoing war with Iran, US President Donald Trump has asked to delay his planned trip to China, originally scheduled for March 31st to April 2nd, by about a month. Now, speaking to reporters, Trump said he wants to remain in Washington while the conflict continues, calling it important to be present during the crisis. Remember, officials from both countries recently held talks in Paris to prepare for a summit between Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping.
You still plan to travel to Beijing at the end of this
year? I don't know. We're working on that right now. We're speaking to China. I'd love to, but because of the war, I want to be here. I have to be here, I feel. And so we've requested that we delay it a month or so, and I'm looking forward to being with them. We have a very good relationship, but because of the war, there's no tricks to it either. It's not like, oh, gee, I'm waiting. It's very simple. We got a war going on. I think it's important that I be here. Yeah? So it could be that we delay it a little bit. Not much. Peter?
Moving on now, oil prices fell about 3% on Monday, with benchmark Brent crude dropping to around $100 a barrel before settling at about 102 barrels at end of trading day, down from about $106 a barrel as intraday high. The decline came after some vessels managed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, easing immediate concerns about supply disruptions. However, as of today, oil prices remain again above the $102 per barrel, highlighting continued volatility in global energy markets amid the ongoing Iran conflict. Meanwhile, discussions likely about additional releases from emergency oil reserves have raised hopes of stabilizing global energy prices and easing pressure on consumers.
Oil prices for benchmark Brent crude fell nearly 3% Monday afternoon to near $100 a barrel. This comes in part after U.S. President Donald Trump repeated his call for help to unblock the Strait of Hormuz after some vessels sailed through it.
We strongly encourage other nations whose economies depend on the Strait far more than ours. We get less than 1% of our oil from the Strait, and some countries get much more. Japan gets 95%, China gets 90%, many of the Europeans get quite a bit, South Korea gets 35%. So we want them to come and help us with the Strait.
Prices also eased on talk of possible additional releases from emergency reserves as part of global efforts to reduce the impact on consumers during the Iran war. On Friday, Brent closed at its highest price since August 2022, and U.S. crude at its highest level since July 2022, putting both up more than 40% since the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran on February 28th. Earlier Monday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the United States is fine with some Iranian, Indian, and Chinese ships going through the Strait of Hormuz for now, adding that any action to mitigate higher prices would depend on how long the war lasts. Analysts at the Eurasia Group Consultancy said in a note that the Hormuz closure makes $100 oil the baseline, not the risk case, and that prices will stay high even if supply improves in April. Meanwhile, several U.S. allies said they had no immediate plans to send ships to unblock the strait, despite Trump's request for military support.
And while the ongoing war in West Asia continues to escalate, India has secured a major diplomatic and logistical energy win. Indian oil tanker Jug Ladki is set to arrive today after successfully navigating the sensitive and conflict-prone Strait of Hormuz. Whereas another Indian vessel, Nanda Devi, docked at Kandla port in Gujarat, while Jug Ladki is en route to Mundra port carrying nearly 81,000 tons of Murban crude oil from the UAE. Now, this development comes at a time when global energy markets remain on edge amid rising geopolitical tensions. India is closely monitoring the situation to ensure the stability of its critical energy supply chain. Earlier, the India-flagged LPG tanker Shivalik, operated by the Shipping Corporation of India, safely docked at Gujarat's Mundra port after transiting the Strait of Hormuz.
Good evening, I Chief Officer Nanda Devi on the behalf of all officers and all ratings of the Nanda Devi. So I would like to say thank you to everyone who was involved in this operation of the crossing Hormuz by the LPG tanker Nanda Devi. So in this operation, various sectors was involved. So first of all, the initiative was taken by Indian Ministry and then by the Shipping Corporation of India with the help of Indian Navy and the Iranian Navy. So all are helped us in the way of communication, moral, and all efforts what they were available to provide, and they provided, and vessel transited the Hormuz safely. And now vessel is en route to the Kandla, Gujarat, and will be serving a huge amount of the LPG, 46,000 metric tons in the India, which will help to the country of India in this worldwide crisis of the LPG. And we will continue to serving this LPG for the future also. And once again, I would like to say thank you to everyone who was involved in this operation.
And from some relief to shipping to continuing chaos in the air, Union Civil Aviation Minister Ramohan Naidu informed the Lok Sabha that thousands of flights have been cancelled due to the ongoing West Asia crisis. Speaking during the 6th day of the parliamentary budget session, the minister said Indian carriers cancelled over 4,335 flights, while foreign airlines cancelled up to 1,187 flights. Naidu stressed that passenger safety remains the top priority, noting that airlines cannot operate when airspace is closed due to security concerns.
Cancellations that have happened because of airspace closure in West Asia, almost till now, sir, in a cumulative, Indian carriers have cancelled up to 4,335 flights, and foreign carriers have cancelled up to 1,187 flights. And the first thing we have to remember during this crisis is that the safety of the operations is the topmost priority. When the airspace itself is closed, there is no reason for us to operate in this area. But with constant communication with the air regulators in those specific countries, we have had 24/7 communication with them, and whenever there was a slot available for us to operate, we have operated, sir, and I can tell you that almost 219,780 people have travelled during this crisis time also, and we have ensured safe operations because our DGCA, our aviation department, everyone is in thorough and collaboration with the authorities there. And right now, there are still some airspace which is still closed, and we are trying to do our best to facilitate for them. But first and foremost, the airspace has to be open. It has to be safe to travel. Only then we can have the regular travel take place.
All right, with that, let's slip into a very quick commercial break. When we come back, Mohit Gang will be here to tell us, are we seeing profit booking on the Lal Street today after Sensex and Nifty crossed more than 1% gains in trade yesterday? Early signs on stock market suggest that profit booking is on. Mohit Gang will be here to tell us more.
Someone to bring your vision into reality. When human vision meets artificial intelligence, storytelling enters new territory. Two distinct categories: brand films, short films, evaluated by the best of the best. Seen by those who shape the industry. Rewarded with a 10 lakh rupee prize pool. Celebrated at What India Thinks Today, Delhi.
AI Squared Awards, where artificial intelligence meets artistic imagination.
The LPG shortage is now being felt across several cities in India. Our reporters travel across the country to bring you the ground reality.
It's impacting your and my kitchen.
Gas crisis hits kitchen fires. Restaurants and small businesses shutting down.
Very difficult because everything runs on LPG.
LPG cylinders are running short.
Supply shortage, hoarding or panic buying. What's the government doing to control the crisis?
So the question is whether India is prepared.
News9 ground reports.
Growing uncertainty over the availability of LPG in the national capital.
We are here at the ground. News9 will be tracking the problems of the people.
But the people that we spoke to on ground have a different story to tell.
Will be continuous coverage.
Continuous coverage on News9. In your interest.
Welcome back. You're watching News9. This is Morning Brief at 9. Time now to take a quick look at the markets. Let's begin first with Asia. And Asia seems to be doing broadly much better than India this morning. In fact, South Korea's Kospi is up again more than 2.5 percentage points in trade in early morning today. Meanwhile, the Hang Seng is up almost 1%. Japan's Nikkei 225 is up 0.5 percentage point. Taiwan's TAIEX is up about 1.5%. The Shanghai Composite Index pretty much mirroring the kind of losses that we are seeing on the Indian stock market as well. So let's pull up the Indian stock market and look at the Sensex and the Nifty figures, which again have opened pretty much with a gap down this morning, even though GIFT Nifty indicators were suggesting that this could be a positive start. Perhaps early signs of profit booking visible on the benchmark indices. Meanwhile, the mid-cap and the small-cap index also reflecting the mood of the benchmark indices, opening a little in the red this morning. Volatility in the Indian stock markets continues to be high, with the India VIX, the fear index, now in the levels of about 21 or so. Let's put this into perspective with Mohit Gang, co-founder and CEO of Moneyfront, who joins us in the show this morning. Mohit, good morning. Thank you so much for your time. Just help us understand the mood of the market. Yesterday, we saw this massive rally in the second half of trade, but this morning, some signs of profit booking. Is that what you're seeing?
Hi Karthik, morning, always a pleasure to be on your show. Look, I think I don't yet see the mood totally chirpy, bubbly or whatever, enthusiastic about the market prospects, right? And there are multiple reasons. Obviously, you were extremely weak on the RSI charts yesterday, and there was an expected bounce back which came because there wasn't a very dampening bad news over the weekend, right? And this kind of gave a little bit of a fillip. But to my mind, I think the underlying current of the market still remains negative, Karthik. Honestly, you need a resolution of the crisis ASAP. You need either party to concede something, either party to call out and say that, okay, this is over now. We are settling for whatever, ABC, XYZ, right? And unless that happens, and unless the Strait opens up formidably, nothing can actually cheer up the market. You need the Hormuz Strait to open up, and there is no second guessing that some containers passing through some countries being allowed, some not being allowed, till such time that there is a danger on transit. I don't think so insurers are coming forward and insuring the vessels which are passing through. I don't think so that vessels are freely moving through. And if that doesn't happen pretty soon, Karthik, I think the second order, the third order impact of this on the economy can be actually very, very brutal. And which is why market is the way it is.
Okay, so that obviously makes sense that there is clarity awaited and there is absolute clear decision-making required on the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, you were, of course, referring to that critical Strait of Hormuz, and look at the price chart of Brent crude oil and how day after day it has been inching up. Now, obviously, there are concerns, but the fact that there are certain Indian carriers which have been allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz should have, at least on the Indian stock markets, reflected a little better off. But it seems that investors seem to be worried, Mohit, whether this is going to be a lasting solution or not to the war.
Oh, definitely, Karthik. Look, I think symbolically, optically, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. I think it's a great point scored for India diplomatically on the global arena. And for not a single minute am I undermining the achievement. I think it's a formidable feat. But you look at the two vessels coming through, right? The total quantity of LPG which came was around 92,700 tons. Now, that just doesn't suffice for even 1.5 days of household consumption of India, right? So you need those kind of vessels to come every day. It's not just one single or two single vessels coming through. You need that kind of supply every day. I'll just give you a very small example, Karthik, and which is what I'm referring to. The third order or the second order impact of this. India imports 100% of its helium gas.
Right.
Entire import comes through Qatar and the Strait of Hormuz. There is some import which comes from Russia and US, but predominantly the almost like 95% plus helium comes from Qatar. Now, helium is used in multiple things. The biggest usage of helium is in MRI scanners, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't have enough supply, we don't have enough storage of helium. If that doesn't come through, you will have those MRI scanners, those computing machines, and a lot of those industrial processes coming to a standstill. And we don't even know the overall impact of how this will lead to multiple things in the economy. And that's just one example I've taken. Helium, because no one's talking about it. You have people speaking about sulfur, you have people speaking about aluminium, multiple other fertilizers, which will impact the farm sector. So all I'm saying is the impact is much more formidable than what you and I can make out perhaps sitting on the screen. And if it doesn't come to a resolution by this month and Karthik, then we are looking at a very, very a long haul for the economy to come back.
Point you've raised, because the second order and the third order impact right now, at least in conversations dominating headlines, is restricted to inflation and perhaps a slowdown of the growth charts. But beyond that, medical use obviously becomes a very, very strong point to note. And thanks for bringing that up, Mohit. Meanwhile, I want to look at the kind of wealth erosion which this war has caused and seek your input on how investors should navigate these turbulent times. If you look at the Nifty 50, it is down about 7% on yesterday's close ever since since the war began on the 28th of February. The Nifty oil and gas is down in more measure at about 7.6%. Meanwhile, domestic sectors like Nifty auto is down about 12.6%. Hard to explain. Plus Nifty bank also down about 10%. Perhaps owing to the FII exodus that we are seeing. Nifty IT performing relatively better, down just about 5.1%. So better off than what we've seen on the benchmark Nifty 50. But the small cap and the mid cap space is what I want to focus on. And I'm pretty much taking cue from your midnight post on Twitter, Mohit, which really talks about the turbulent times and the small cap advantage visible. In your post, you mentioned that the Nifty small cap 250 PE, which is trading at about multiples of 24x, is actually better off than what we've seen the 7-year median PE at about 30x or so. Is this really a buying opportunity? What exactly is the message that you want to give investors?
Oh, absolutely, Karthik. Look, you have to have the gut and the gumption to go in the market at this point in time. Not many will do it, and not many should do it also, unless you have the appetite to swallow the volatility, right? Though I've mentioned it's the P currently is at 24 times, but we have seen a P of as low as around 17 times also around 2022 or 23. I've mentioned the date in my tweet. I don't recall it. Around August 23, I think. If I'm
you're mentioning 2018 and 2018 and mid 2022 when the small cap corrections were visible last.
Absolutely. 22, I think August, October was around the time when the small cap correction was brutal. And for a longish period of around 6 to 7 odd months, the small cap P multiple was trading in the range of around 17 to 20 odd times, right? So it was like 6-7 odd month kind of a period. And the 20 to 24 kind of a range was also a pretty longish range. It traded in that range for a pretty long while, but the bounce back from there on, and we all know the story of 23 and 24 was ferocious, right? So if you have, as I said, if you have the risk appetite, if you have the time horizon with you, I'm not anyone to call out the market. It's not my business to be. But look, once all this settles, and it will for sure settle, whether a month or a quarter, I don't know. But once it settles and when market starts looking forward, I think small cap is the one, or mid caps are the one who will cheer up the market. I've changed my view. Actually, I was pretty negative on small cap at the start of the year. But over a period of time, seeing the correction, I think I'm now getting a little bullish about both mid caps and small caps for people who have the risk appetite and who have the patience to stay put in the market for at least 3 to 5 years. I think it will reward them very handsomely from these levels.
Right. And you were also mentioning in your tweet, if I remember correctly, Mohit, that if you can stomach the punch of about 20% more downside, then lump sum may be a good idea. Otherwise, just stick to your SIPs, and SIPs in small caps and mid caps, at least from what I understood from your tweet, is something which is likely to give you better dividends in the 3 to 5 year horizon. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Look, Karthik, I think most of these kind of events, my understanding says, ends with a supernova effect. What I mean to say is they always end with a catastrophic capitulation, right? We haven't seen that kind of a day. We saw that last Friday when the markets were like bleeding chips all across. But you need that one extremely bad day when your soul says, "Oh, boss, this is like the correction what I've seen," and you're like extremely fearful at that time. And that perhaps is the point of where the tide turns, right? So maybe you have one of those days left in the market. If not, then yes, well and good. But if you have those days left, then perhaps lump sum might not be a great idea unless you have the heart and the stomach to digest good 10-20% correction more from these levels. Otherwise, just stagger it out for 3 months, Karthik. I think I'm not asking for a longish period here. 3 to 6 months should be good enough for one to enter. If you enter in these times with that 3 to 6 month window, I think there is enough and more money on the plate.
And is it still a good idea, Mohit, even if you're looking at the small cap and the mid cap space, is it a good idea to just take the mutual funds route where your exposure is a little more diversified as opposed to going absolutely selective on certain stocks?
Oh, yes, Karthik. I think that I've always believed in, unless you are the one sitting in front of the screen and analyzing the stocks day in and day out, and you know what to buy and what not to buy. I think mutual fund gives you a very formidable route to enter the space holistically, right? With expertise, with professional management, with ease of entry, exit, both. And even in mutual funds, if let's say you don't want to break your head, you just go with the index and buy the index out there. So there are very simplistic ways available for investors who are confused at these levels, what to buy, how to buy, and when to buy. Go into a simplistic mutual fund with an SIP route of 3 to 6 months, and that's as easy as it gets.
All right, Mohit, do stay with me. There's another corporate news item that popped up yesterday, which I want to run our viewers through, because Reliance Industries has signed a binding long-term agreement with South Korea's Samsung C&T to supply green ammonia over a 15-year period starting in the second half of FY 2029. The deal, valued at over $3 billion, is among the world's largest long-term green ammonia offtake agreements. The partnership is expected to strengthen India's position as a major exporter of green fuels produced through a fully integrated domestic value chain. Reliance Industries is building a large new energy platform spanning renewable power, energy storage, green hydrogen and downstream green fuels. The project also aligns with India's national green hydrogen mission and the broader push to boost clean energy manufacturing under the Make in India initiative. Investors are reacting positively to that news in trade this morning. Mohit, we see Reliance Industries is up about 0.4% or so in trade this morning. Obviously, a timely decision, obviously in the making for a much longer time, but the announcement of green ammonia really making use of the sunlight, which India, like pretty much, all of the world has abundance of, at a time when energy supplies seem constrained. So what do you make of this latest move by Reliance Industries? What does it mean for investors who are looking at India's energy story?
Look, I think, Karthik, there is no two doubts about that. One thing which India has abundantly available and which we haven't been able to successfully utilize is the energy around us, is the green energy, the solar energy, which we have amply available, right? And I think it's high time that India does something to be self-sufficient and self-reliant on the energy front. We've seen what a small crisis can lead us to, right? We're running out of LPG, we're running out of CNG, and these things can have massive impact on the economy and daily livelihoods of people. So it's not an easy thing. So my sense is, I think Reliance is pushing all the right buttons out here. Obviously, it is a step towards self-reliance. How does it shape up? How does it come along? It's a long way down in the future. But my sense is, given their capability and execution capacity, the way Reliance have executed previous projects and everything, I have no doubts they will do it quick and thick. So my sense is, yes, I think it's a great thing. Reliance, any which ways, is showing some green shoots of late, given the way oil is spiking up, given the way they're going and tying up in the US to refine the Venezuelan crude. And plus, I think overall they are a beneficiary of this entire geopolitical events which are shaping up. So yeah, I think it's hugely positive for India as a country and for Reliance as a stock.
All right, Mohit gang, we will leave it at that for this morning. As always, pleasure having you here with us on News9, and thank you so much for your time. And shifting focus to trade deals now, the interim trade agreement between India and the United States will be signed only after Washington finalizes its new global tariff framework, according to a senior government official. The official noted that trade deals are structured around comparative advantages, meaning tariff levels must be assessed relative to those imposed on competing economies. India and the US had earlier finalized a framework for the first phase of a bilateral trade pact, under which the United States agreed to reduce tariffs on Indian goods to 18%, the lowest among key competitors such as China, Vietnam and Thailand. However, changes in the US tariff system following a Supreme Court ruling against President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs have delayed the signing. Washington has since imposed temporary 10% tariffs on all countries for 150 days, prompting negotiators to pause finalizing the legal text of the agreement. Now, officials say the deal itself is largely complete, but the formal signing will take place only once the US establishes its new global tariff architecture and the final comparative advantage for India becomes clear. Meanwhile, the European Union and India are now moving towards implementing their recently concluded free trade agreement and security partnership. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the focus is now on ensuring the deal delivers benefits for people in both regions as soon as possible. Her remarks come after a meeting with External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who is on a two-day visit to Brussels for talks with EU leaders. The two sides also discussed developments in West Asia and the ongoing Ukraine conflict. So that's the latest coming in from that joint meeting of External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who is in Brussels on a two-day visit where he has had a meeting with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Meanwhile, India has signed the terms of reference with the Philippines and the Maldives to begin negotiations for new trade agreements. Talks with the Philippines will focus on a preferential trade agreement, while discussions with Maldives will aim at a full-fledged free trade agreement. A preferential trade pact typically lowers or removes duties on select goods, while a free trade agreement covers a wider range of goods, services, as well as investments. The move comes as India pushes to expand its global trade footprint, with negotiations also underway with partners including the EU, Canada, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and several other countries. And time for a very short break, but when we come back, some more global stories, including the one from the official handle of the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. Another attempt at telling the world that he is alive. We'll tell you what his latest viral social media reel is all about.
Confirmed. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been eliminated. But it was just not about Khamenei. It was also about the entire regime which the Americans wanted to take out.
Are the Iranians going to carry out their pledges, and are they going to continue with their attack?
Though Trump had said that the waves of attack would continue, but a new signal has come that there might be a small pause.
IRGC is likely to adopt lesser radical and more pragmatic approach to basically buy time so that the regime can survive.
There is much more than what is visible or to the naked eye.
Khamenei was killed because uranium enrichment and the Iranian desire to make a bomb.
That expertise is there. People know how to enrich it. There are infrastructure which can again be rebuilt.
Iran today is headless. There is transition, but conclusion is far away.
We're going to explore the unknown sides and destinations of Spain.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. US Vice President J.D. Vance has backed President Donald Trump's handling of the war with Iran. Speaking on Monday, J.D. Vance said he trusts Trump to ensure that the mistakes of past conflicts are not repeated. His comments come amid speculation that Vance's well-known anti-war views might put him at odds with the US president. Now, questions about a possible divide also followed earlier remarks by Trump, who said Vance was philosophically a little different and perhaps less enthusiastic about attacking Iran.
What the president said consistently, going back to 2015, and I agreed with him, is that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. We have taken this military action under the president's leadership. I think all of us, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, should pray for its success and pray for the safety of our troops. Well, I think one big difference, Phil, is that we have a smart president, whereas in the past we've had dumb presidents. And I trust President Trump to get the job done, to do a good job for the American people, and to make sure that the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. Absolutely.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has released yet another video of himself to counter rumors circulating online about his death. Netanyahu shared a video on social media platform X showing him speaking with people at an outdoor location. Now, the clip appears aimed at dismissing viral claims suggesting the Israeli leader had died. A day earlier, remember, Netanyahu also mocked the rumors, including a conspiracy theory circulating online about him having 6 fingers. On the video playing on the left side of your screen, you see the Israeli Prime Minister showing his 5 fingers, asking viewers to count that his fingers are 5 and not 6, as suggested by online skeptics earlier after the release of his previous video. Now, the posts come as misinformation about the Israel-Iran conflict continues to spread widely across social media platforms. In the video playing on your right, which was released just a few hours ago, Netanyahu was seen talking to visitors in an outdoor location, presumably somewhere in Israel itself, where these swish pans are suggesting that the video is absolutely real. But again, online viewers of the video have taken on to social media platforms to also suggest that during this video, at about the 26th second or so, the ring which previously appears on one of the fingers of the Israeli Prime Minister in fact disappears. Of course, News9 has not been able to independently verify whether these videos have been generating using artificial intelligence or are indeed real. And moving on to another country that US President Donald Trump has his eyes set on, Cuba. Trump has made fresh remarks about Cuba, suggesting the United States could take control of the island. Now, speaking to reporters at the White House, Trump said he believes he could have the honor of taking Cuba. Now, Trump's remarks are likely to raise concerns across the region as governments and investors watch closely for any shift in U.S. policy toward the island.
All my life I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. When will the United States do it? I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now. They were for a long time. Very violent leaders. Castro was a very violent leader. His brother's a very violent leader. Extremely violent. That's how they governed. They governed with violence. But a lot of people would like to go back.
The U.S. President is also pushing Congress to pass a controversial new election bill. U.S. President Donald Trump said it is imperative that the Senate approves the Save America Act, a Republican-backed proposal aimed at tightening federal election rules. The bill would require proof of citizenship to register to vote, impose stricter voter identification requirements, and place new limits on mail-in ballots. Now, the proposal is expected to face strong opposition from Democrats and voting rights groups. Take a look.
I think it's imperative that it gets done. I'm not sure it is. You know, the Save America Act, voter ID with a picture, right? That's a 99% issue. Even among Democrats, you know, Democrats poll at 89% on that. And then they have proof of citizenship. And then they have no mail-in ballots. No mail-in ballots. We have no mail-in.
And on to news from corporate America now. The world's most valuable company, NVIDIA, has said the opportunity for artificial intelligence chips could reach $1 trillion in coming years. CEO Jensen Huang said the market for chips powering real-time artificial intelligence systems could generate at least $1 trillion in revenue by the year 2027. The company also outlined plans to compete more aggressively as demand for AI computing continues to surge.
AI is able to do productive work, and therefore the inflection point of inference has arrived. AI now has to think. In order to think, it has to inference. AI now has to do. In order to do, it has to inference. AI has to read. In order to do so, it has to inference. It has to reason. It has to inference. Every part of AI, every time it has to think, it has to reason, it has to do, it has to generate tokens, it has to inference. It's way past training now. It's in the field of inference. So the inference inflection has arrived. I'm here to tell you that right now where I stand, a few short months after GTC DC, 1 year after last GTC, right here where I stand, I see through 2027 at least $1 trillion.
And at the recently concluded Silver Jubilee edition of Delhi's World Sustainability Development Summit here in New Delhi, Andrew Pragg, Managing Director Policy, We Mean Business Coalition, spoke about the need for corporates and multinationals take the sustainability and climate commitment seriously and also held accountable for their progress. The role the Global South can play in ensuring the same as emerging economies are the places where huge industrial investments have been coming of late. Listen in.
The We Mean Business Coalition works towards ensuring that corporate climate commitments are not just announced, but structured, verified and held to account across sectors and geographies. This in order to make the accountability architecture of the transition real. The Global South has a big role to play in this transition owing to its huge size. Furthermore, businesses need to bridge the financing gap for green innovation in this region in order to make the transition meaningful globally.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. It's a real pleasure to be here in Delhi at the WSDS. We are indeed an international business coalition working with businesses around the world, partly to put in place this kind of accountability that you talk about, but also to really make sure that the voices of the leading businesses, those that really see their future in energy transition and their future competitiveness in that area, make sure that those voices are being heard by policymakers, both internationally and also domestically in countries, including here in India. In terms of your question, what can business do more to stimulate that? Well, I think making sure that their voices are heard in the political sphere, that really there is an enormous part of the business side that wants to see this transition, and we see that increasingly across the Global South. We were originally a Global North business coalition, but increasingly we see the international center of gravity shifting, and we're arriving here in India. We see so much opportunity, sense of opportunity amongst the business community that to show this kind of leadership and to put the investment where they see the future in the energy transition as their future source of security and competitiveness. Obviously, the business conditions are not necessarily so easy. There is a high cost of capital. There are other challenges facing businesses looking to invest. So really making sure that the policymakers hear the voices of these businesses is one important factor that they can be done. And we see, as we look across the Global South, we did a big business polling exercise last year, hundreds of executives here in India. 99% of them said that they would want to see a fast transition to renewable energy, provided that the policy signals are leading them in that direction. So, yeah, really making sure that those voices are heard is a big part of what businesses can do here.
Solar energy is now among the cheapest sources of new electricity. Solar and wind electrification can scale on the back of falling technology costs, creating opportunities for manufacturing expansion and greater energy sovereignty. The development model of India offers lessons for other emerging economies to follow.
It's actually a very inspiring story what's happened in India's journey in the energy transition and renewables in the last 10 or 15 years, and I think there's a lot that can be used as a model for other countries. And when we look at things like the clarity of the policy direction through the national missions that were established and how clear that was, and then the stability of policy signals and how they are implemented at the state level, the subnational level around the country, and that there are reliable institutions to be backing up those policies has really been successful in mobilizing private capital into this sector, mostly domestic private capital, but also international finance. So as we look overseas, I think it's important this model can be looked at by other countries who are not trying to just use the global north policy norms, which may not be appropriate to the conditions that we see in the global south. Things like the higher cost of capital, things like more challenges around grid integration, things around the importance of energy access and first-time electrification for access and these kind of things. So I think there's a lot that can be learned from India's model, and we're actually seeing that start to happen. If you look in East Africa, India model for renewable auctions is being rolled out in some countries there, and I think this is a great model for how this South-South cooperation can happen in future.
The pace and scale of adoption of electrification is something businesses need to determine through adequate capital allocation, decisions, technology choices, and supply chain transformations.
We see businesses really looking the technology costs in energy transition are falling. In many cases, they are competitive, and it can be the cheapest form of new power generation in many areas. But we need the policy landscape to be conducive to driving that investment at scale. So, businesses are looking to where the policy frameworks are strongest. We saw this again, that the polling of business attitudes I mentioned before. We saw globally across that sample, 50% of businesses said they would be prepared to move countries, to shift their investments, either their operations or their supply chains, to places where the policy framework is more conducive to the energy transition. So really, when they're looking at how to allocate their capital and their investment decisions, the policy frameworks are key. We're seeing this actually particularly on this agenda of electrification, which we're extremely excited about as a key element of how we can accelerate the energy transition in a pragmatic, cost-competitive way. By electrification, we mean end users which are currently using fossil fuels at the point of use, such as in transport, buildings, industry, switching those to electric sources in order to provide more demand for the renewable electricity. And this is a key area where the policy signals are absolutely crucial. We need, businesses are looking for where the incentives are aligned and where they're encouraged to make these shifts in a way that won't lead to higher energy costs, higher electricity costs for those businesses concerned.
This isn't a trail of peace. This is pressure overload. A hill built for 1,000, forced to carry lakhs.
Instead of lightening the footprint, you have allowed people to actually get into every nook and corner of the Himalayas.
Careless travel, choking hills. If we don't change now, there won't be much left to enjoy.
We need to follow the Bhutan model, regulate people who can access hills.
News9 presents Heal the Hills, continuous coverage.
It's confirmed. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been eliminated. But it was just not about Khamenei. It was also about the entire regime which the Americans wanted to take out.
Are the Iranians going to carry out their pledges, and are they going to continue with their attack?
The Trump had said that the waves of attack would continue. But a new signal has come that there might be a small pause.
IRGC is likely to adopt lesser radical and more pragmatic approach to basically buy time so that the regime can survive.
There is much more than what is visible or to the naked eye.
Khamenei was killed because uranium enrichment and the Iranian desire to make a bomb.
That expertise is there. People know how to enrich it. There are infrastructure which can again be rebuilt.
Iran today is headless. There is transition, but conclusion is far away.
What you saw me on the field and off the field is like chalk and cheese. Is leadership acquired or leaders are born?
No guts, no glory, no pain, no gain. My tendency is to go for magic, not for perfection.
I never give up. I like to win. If you believe you can, you can.
Just me being here, it's a statement.
You define a concept called against all odds. You seem to be a destiny's child. When chips are down, the whole team could have looked up to you, said, Dada is still there. Every time, whether I scored 100 or a Sachin scored 100 or a Rahul scored 100 or a Sehwag scored 100, the scoreboard said India won.
There is a quality about me, which is why perhaps people feel I'm a perfectionist, because I don't get tired easily.
Let the kids know and the families know that one of the best ways to get a good education, go to a good school and a good college anywhere in the world is if you play a sport well.
How would it be possible for a person, ordinary person, for me to know?
Acting कर रहा है या ये सच कर रहा है?
ये जो बात.
I'm not a very good actor in real life. Real life मेरे चेहरे पे दिख जाता है झूठ बोल रही है.
In Germany, the biggest newspaper was written on the first page. This is a finishing from Lothar Matthäus' career, and this was motivate me.
I was literally on my phone at home and they're like, oh, we have the results. We suggest that you remove your breast. And I'm like, wait, what?
When I started stumbling and I started making the mistakes, that I realized that, now that person who I have not forgiven 2 years back, now I know what he feels like.
Very important understanding of life, that you will only get opportunities if you're good. And if you're not good, don't expect opportunities.
The best example I could ever give is Abraham Lincoln, losing every election he ever had till he won the presidency.
You know, I actually have the feeling that my life hasn't started yet.
We all have two lives. The second one begins the day we realize that we only have one life.
Wow.
The LPG shortage is now being felt across several cities in India. Our reporters traveled across the country to bring you the ground reality.
It's impacting your and my kitchen.
Gas crisis hits kitchen fires. Restaurants and small businesses shutting down.
Very difficult because everything runs on LPG.
LPG cylinders are running short.
Supply shortage, hoarding or panic buying.
3000 de turant cylinder.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
Hello and a very warm welcome. I'm Nancy Bora and you're watching News9. Headlines first. Afghanistan's Taliban government says over 400 killed in Pakistani airstrike on Kabul rehabilitation